So when you talk of dissonance, when you Google the word dissonance, or you want to check the word dissonance, you can see different levels of meanings. But the first one you see, it has to do with a lack of harmony, especially used in music. You know, when music is not in tune, when there's no harmony. You know, so even in language, we have what we call dissonance, when things are not adding up, when our understanding of something is not adding up. Okay, so dissonance in communication connotes lack of harmony or agreement, often manifesting as conflicting beliefs, messages, or actions leading to discomfort or unease. You know that every one of us, we have grown up from a background. There's a way that people behave where we come from. There's a way that our family settings has taught us to do so many things, the way that is different from the people that we meet on the streets or in school. And so when those people begin to do certain things in certain ways, it conflicts with our own ideologies, with our own belief system, with our own standard or principles. And so when that happens, there's a dissonance, there's a disagreement. You cannot flow with what the person is trying to do. And, you know, so when there's a communication, when someone is communicating and then the person is beginning to enforce what they believe in on the other party, then there's usually dissonance. There's usually a disagreement because the other person may not be able to identify with what is being said. So, lack of consistency or compatibility arises when there's a clash of opinions or viewpoints in communication, because we all have different experiences, we all have different backgrounds, we all have different cultural values, we have different religious values, we have different norms, you know, that we hold so dear, and we wouldn't want any other person to contradict that. I remember in Nigeria a few years back, there was a crisis in the north when there was, I think this beauty pageant or so in Kano or so, and the Muslims there, they felt that it violated their mode of dressing or their way of life, and it became a problem. They had to stop, discontinue with the program. So that's what happens in dissonance when something is communicated that conflicts with someone's idea or belief system. Then there is a conflict, there is a dissonance, there is a disagreement, there is no harmony in that communication situation. So dissonance may also arise from language use in the perception of individual words. There are some words that people frown at. They call them taboo words. You know, people frown at. You cannot use such words. Like, you know, in English, we have the F word that even online, when you use it, it's usually silenced because there's a negative perception of such words, you know. So it does not agree with people's ideologies, people's principles of life. Okay. So let's move on. Let's quickly look at the causes of dissonance. So there are so many causes. So number one, when there's a forced compliance, that's when someone is forced to believe something, there's usually a dissonance because it agrees with the person's, it contradicts one's behavior. For example, you can see peer pressure. A lot of times we train our children in a different way, and then they go to meet their peers and they begin to call them names because they have refused to behave in a certain way, and so they are odd. So that kind of it's kind of makes them feel that they are less than who their colleagues are, because they are not behaving the same way those people are behaving, you know. So sometimes it's even forced, because when you are the odd one, you don't feel good about it, and so you try to conform. So it's part of the causes of dissonance. And then we have the second one, which is making difficult decisions. When you have a choice to make between two similar things and you are at the crossroad, you don't know which one to. Should you go for the negative aspect of it, or should you go for the positive one? So it's a kind of a conflict that originates from within when one has to choose something, and it's proving difficult, you know, to choose. And then we have effort justification. When the effort put into something fails to yield the desired outcome, you know, there's usually a negative feeling that goes with it. Okay. And then when there's a new information, and, you know, so usually anytime there's a new information that comes our way, there's a way we take it. Sometimes we watch first before we will decide whether or not to actually believe what is being said. Okay, so learning new information that contradicts one's beliefs is usually... Hello, any problem? Please mute your mic. As human beings, you know, this thing they call change. Change is not easy. You understand? Because most of the time we are already so used to what we know. And so when a new information comes, it's not easy to accept it, you know. So new information or belief system, something new that someone has just said, you know, there's a struggle within either to accept it or not to accept it. And then we have social pressure and expectations. You know, when you can't stand on your feet, when you can't stand on your ground, you just want to conform. Feeling pressures to conform to group norms or expectations that conflict with one's personal values. I mentioned that when I was giving an example of peer pressure, you know. So sometimes you see people doing things because they don't want to be odd. They just want to flow. They don't want people to begin to look at them as they are different. They just want to conform so that they will be liked, they will be loved by others. So they tend to have a conflict within themselves. And then addiction. When you talk of addiction can be behavioral as well. So addiction does not only apply to substance consumption. When you know something is bad, but because it's easy to do or you enjoy doing it and you keep doing that thing, then there's a conflict within you, because you cannot bring yourself to, you know, to do the right thing. You are bound by the wrong thing because it's easy, because it's what you are used to, because you like it. So knowing that a behavior is harmful, but continuing to engage in it can lead to dissonance. So we have the effects of dissonance. There are so many effects of dissonance. Number one, we have emotional distress. Emotional distress. So these are the effects on the individual. Emotional distress. You know, all of us have what we call conscience. So for a point like the addiction that I mentioned here, if you constantly do what is wrong and you know that this thing you do is wrong and you keep doing it, you will feel guilty. There's this feeling of guilty. There's this feeling of shame that comes with it. So anytime you do that thing, you still feel that guilt, but you tell yourself a lie that you cannot help yourself. You cannot help yourself, and so you do it. You know, but you know deep down that that thing is not right, but you keep doing it. So it brings about emotional distress, sometimes a feeling of shame and regret, and even low self-esteem, because sometimes you just feel everybody knows or everybody is looking at you. So that could make you not to have a healthy self-esteem. Then we have behavioral and belief changes. So to reduce the impact, one may decide to give up their belief. That's another effect of dissonance. So when you are in a group of people, they keep doing something and you don't detach yourself from that, chances are that you would begin to, imbibe what they are constantly communicating to you. You begin to be like them. You know the popular saying that says, show me your friends and I will tell you who you are. So most people change because they cannot stand on their own. They cannot uphold what is right because they are afraid to be alone. They are afraid to be the only person saying the other thing, so they want to be together, So it makes people to try to compromise their values in order to fit in, and fitting in is not always the best. So they tell themselves lies. They lie to avoid difficult situations. They do all kind of things, They are so defensive. Okay, so we talked about effects of dissonance on the individual. So let's quickly look at the effects of dissonance on communication. So one of it is avoidance. You see that when some topics are discussed, some people will decide to, not to comment. They disconnect themselves from such things because they want to avoid conflict. They want to avoid, confrontation. So they try to avoid it. And then another one, justification. They may try to justify their actions or beliefs, even if they are inconsistent. They try to justify it. And lastly, defensive communication. Defensive communication manifests through arguments. There are some people that really argue a lot. Everything that is said, they have counter arguments. They have other things that they want to, use to counter what has been said. So there are always arguments. They are always engaged in an argument. So for that, it's part of the effect on. It's part of the effect of dissonance on the individual. I want to believe that we are all getting our questions ready, if there are questions, and we'll quickly attend to them. Okay, so the last thing that we are to look at is the theory of dissonance. And for the theory, I don't want to say much about that. I just want to mention that because we don't really need to begin to go into theories and all that, as this is a GNS course. But for language students, that's when we may really go in deeper. Okay, so when you talk of theory about something, theory is a statement, of okay, so let me not just let me just state it. The theories, according to Fast India 1957, says that when two beliefs are inconsistent, individuals experience negative arousing. So when two beliefs are inconsistent, when you talk of inconsistency here, is what we've been talking about since. Inconsistency manifests itself in two ways. One, it could be that one of the parties involved in the communication, is out of tune with what is happening. That is, it does not tally with his or her values. And then inconsistency on the part of the speaker when they are saying different things. So all of this are the different ways that inconsistency can, manifest itself. So for cognitive dissonance, it says that when two beliefs are inconsistent, there's usually a conflict, just like we have been saying all along. So I want to stop here for now. And if there's any question or observation from any of my colleagues, then we can look at it and know the next thing to say or to do. So for those of you that have questions, you can
Okay, thank you.
begin to. Okay.
Thank you, lecturer, Mrs. Agelaga. Hello, can you hear me, Mrs. Agelaga?
I can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. We have learned a lot today. In fact, I'm impressed, honestly, and I've also learned new things, new knowledge from you today. So, on behalf of the students, I want to appreciate you for your expertise, your wealth of experience, and your depth of knowledge in relation to code mixing and code switching and dissonance in communication. In fact, one thing I've noticed, one thing I discovered today about you is that I never knew that you were you speak Hausa fluently like this. So I'm coming for another tutorial because the fluency with which you spoke those Hausa words shows that you are partly a Hausa speaker, partly an English speaker, and also your level of knowledge in Yoruba. I think that I will come in. Thank you so much. We appreciate your you on that. Then for the students, this is the time for questions and answer sessions. This is the time.